Good day, students. Once again, this is another question on contingency table. And I decided to use a different color contingency table for the sake of ladies in this question. I think this will be a kind of a lovely color. Now, example 6.2, and there's also another reason why I've chosen the color, because there are females in this scenario. It says out of a total of 1,000 employees at a certain company. That means the total number of employees in this company, it is 1,000. Remember, I've already done the table for you for this contingency table because everything is kind of straightforward. Then out of a total number of employees, which is 1,000, now in this case we have the number that is given to us, which previously you can have X here depending to the scenario that you provided, or we can have 100% here in the case where we deal with the percentage. Now in the case where we deal with the fractions, this will be just indicated as X, of which that X has a 1 next to it, meaning it's 1X to be honest. But in this case, we are given a total number of employees in this company who are working for this organization, that the name of it is not made known to us. So now we have this 1,000 employees, of which 52% of them are females, and 40% of these females work in the research department. So now they say 52% of these employees, they are female. That means they are female employees and they are male employees. And it says 40% of these females work in the research department. That means there are those who work in the research department and there are those who do not work in the research department. So now you can see we always have to identify the other unknown variable or the other unknown category, because if we do have females, then obviously there will also be males which were not really disclosed. So now we also have those who work in the research department and also have those who do not work in the research department, meaning they work in other departments. Even if you can say work in other departments, that will still be fine. You don't have to specify that they don't work in research department, meaning they work in other departments. So now or in another department, because there might be two departments or more than two departments. So now any information will have to be acceptable in this regard. Now I do have my categories: male, female, work in the research, do not work in the research, or work in other departments. Now let me read now and capture the information that I have. It says 52% are females. 52% of what? 52% of the 1,000 employees, they are females. So now we have to say 1,000 multiply this by 52% and we see how much do we get. 1,000, we multiply this by 0.52, it gives us 520. 520 of this 1,000 employees, they are females. That means now if 520 they are females, that means 48, I want to highlight that, that means 48% of them are males. Therefore now if we say, remember, out of 100%, we say 100 minus 52, the rest will be male employees, which is 48, and divide that by 100, which is a percentage, multiply this by 1,000, it will tell us that the total number of the employees who are in this company are male employees. So now that is what we have so far. Let us read further. And now it says, remember once again, this was not provided. We had to find it out as kind of an unknown. Or you could have said 1,000 minus 520, that will give you 480. We say 1,000 minus 520, this will give us 480 for those employees who are the male employees. We need to know now, if we have employees who are males and female, and the females are 52%, there's more males than females, and we have 48%. Then we need to know what percentage of the females work in the research department and what percentage of the females do not work in the research department or they work in other departments. Similarly with the male and the departments that they are working under. So now we continue in that same note. It says 40% of these females work in the research department. Take note, 40% of these females, meaning 40% of the 520, because these are the females that we have. Out of the total number of employees, females are 520. 40% of that 520, they work in the research department. That means 60% they do not work in the research department or they work in other departments. So now 520 multiply this by 40%, we find out that 208 of these employees, they are females and they work in the research department. 208, that is where that is coming from. Now remember we said that if 40% work in the research department, that means 60% to make it 100%, they do not work in the research department or they work in other departments, and that is 312. Or else we could have said 520 minus 208, that will give you the rest of the number of employees who work in other departments or who do not work in the research department. Now this will be the next info that has been provided to us. Now let us read further and we'll see what next is given to us. They say if 60% of the total number of employees, how many employees do we have? If 60% of the total number of employees, meaning 60% of this, they work in research department, meaning if 60% of these employees, they work in the research department. Remember, this is the percentage of, or this is the line for those who work in the research department. Then now they say if 60% of the total number of employees work in the research department, meaning 60% of this 1,000, if they work in the research department, then what is the question? How many male employees do not work in the research department is the question. So now we first need to record the 60% of the total number of employees who work in the research department, and 60% of 1,000 will be 600. How do we do that? We say 1,000 times by 60%. We discover that 600 employees, or 600 out of the total employees, they work in the research department, of which 208 of them are females. Therefore now we need to know those that are male employees. Then what do we do now? We say out of the 600 minus those who are females working in the research department, then we get the males who work in the research department. It is 392. There is more employees, or there is more males who are researchers in this company than females who are researchers in this department. Then now from this stage we know that if 60% work in the research department of the total employees, then 40%, which will be 400 of the total number of employees. Remember, this is 60% and this will be 40%, meaning 40% they do not work in the research department. That means they work in other departments. In other words, that can also be an acceptable line to write, work in other departments. So now we could have said again, out of the 1,000 that we have, we multiply this by 0.4, we get to 400. Then after we say 400 minus 312, 400 minus 312, we get to see that we only have 88 employees who are male and they work in other departments, or they do not work in the research department. So now this will be our information that we needed to paste. Let us see what is the question, or what were we required to do. Very important to respond to the requirement. Then now it says how many male employees do not work in the research department. How many male employees do not work in the research department? There we go under male employees, we go down and you say do not work in the research department. That will be 88 employees who are males. They do not work in the research department, meaning they work in other departments. Then it becomes very important now to use the word do not work in research because they use the same term. Then if they wanted, they could have said how many employees work in other departments. So now if they said how many employees work in other departments, then you could have said here work in other departments. So now that will be the answer to what we were required to do. The answer is 8 employees. They do not work in the research department and they tend to be male employees. Thank you guys very much. God be with you. I hope you had a very wonderful understanding of the contingency. Any questions, contact me, then I'll respond to you immediately. Thank you very much.